Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to Instagram Tuesdays, my books for a week. I've been wanting to do this video for so long, so I'm so excited to finally be getting around to it. I actually already posted the polls last night so that I could just hop right into reading this morning. And for the first poll, I decided to pit two fantasy books against each other. So the first book I have is Throne of the Fallen. I honestly haven't heard much about this book, but I have an in-person book club with a bunch of friends and this is our book club pick for the month. So if it doesn't get picked in this video, I will definitely be reading this very soon. It looks like this is going to be a pretty long series following all of the deadly sins. So this one follows the Prince of Envy. It says there's a cryptic note arrives signaling the beginning of a deadly game. He knows it'll take more than a hint of sin to win and save his falling demon court. And then we have our main female character who is a mysterious artist with secrets of her own. It says to avoid a ruinous scandal, Camilla must enter a devil's bargain with envy. So it sounds pretty good and I've actually had friends say that this is one of their favorite fantasy books. So I'm very excited to read this one and like I said, if it doesn't get picked in this poll, I'll definitely read it very soon. And then against Throne of the Fallen, I put Paladin's Grace. I've been wanting to read this book for a while. I don't know what's going into this one either, but I know that our main character is a perfumist and our MMC is Steven. It says he's a broken paladin living only for the chance to be useful before he dies. But all that changes when he encounters a fugitive named Grace in an alley and witnesses an attempt gone wrong. So I'm very excited to read both of these books. Let's see what the poll chose for us. I haven't been on Instagram on purpose because I don't want to accidentally look and see. I want my very raw reaction. Okay, wow, we're starting with Throne of the Fallen. That one got 62% of the votes and then Paladin's Grace got 38%. So Throne of the Fallen won by a good amount, which is great because I was definitely more in the mood to read this one. So let's start our first book of the video. I am so into all of the art in this book. It definitely adds to the experience. I just made it to page 79, which is chapter 8, and we're definitely still setting up the story. This is a Regency era fantasy, and I don't think I've read a Regency era fantasy before, but I'm really into Regency era movies and TV shows, so I feel like I'll like this. I also just love looking at old houses, so when I'm picturing the story in my head, that's what I'm picturing, these old beautiful castles. In this story, we have our main character Camilla, who is an artist, and she's in a bad situation right now because she's essentially being forced to create these forgeries of expensive art pieces. And so one day our MMC, his name is Sin, I don't exactly know if I'm pronouncing that right, but one day he shows up and he's like, hey, I need you to create this art piece. And she says no, but he is not going to give up because he needs this art piece for some type of trial that he's in. And he needs her to do this to win this competition trial thing that he's doing. We don't know yet what exactly he's doing and why. We are definitely still very much setting up the story and we're kind of just getting information in bits and pieces as the story progresses. Also, it says on the back of the book that they travel through the underworld and I forgot that that was one of the main reasons that I wanted to read this book. So we have not gotten into that at all, but it did mention, I think, like the 9 circles of hell, but then it says 7 circles on the front of the book. I don't know, I'm confused because I know that there's 7 brothers, so I assume each brother will end up having its own book eventually. And then I also know that each brother represents, I think, a deadly sin. And so in this book, we're following Envy. I don't feel like his sin has come up a ton so far in the story, but so far I am enjoying this book. I don't think it's anything overwhelmingly amazing, at least so far, but I am enjoying it. I also want to mention it is not closed door, like at all, which I didn't know before going into this. And I always like to mention that when I'm reading a book that's not closed door, just because I feel like that is very personal preference. I have less than 24 hours to finish this book for a book club and I'm on page 189. So I have so much left of this book and I'm also a slow reader. So I'm starting to doubt if I can actually do this or not, but I'm gonna try my hardest because it's not like I can just not go to book club tomorrow because I am hosting here. So like that's not an option. I have to finish this book because if I don't, it's obviously gonna get spoiled for me tomorrow. But I don't know how I feel about this book right now. I feel like if I was liking it more, I wouldn't keep getting distracted by it. But I also think part of the problem is I've been reading this book for like 2-ish weeks at this point. I put it down for a little bit to work on a different reading vlog and then I just got super busy, so I would pick it up, read a chapter, read a page or 2 before bed, and so I just find myself not getting super into it, which really sucks. But I'm hoping today I can get super into it, and then like I said, I need to finish it because it is right before 2 o'clock right now and book club is tomorrow at 11. So I don't have a ton of time to finish this, but we're gonna see if I can do it. It's also a bit of a gloomy, rainy day today, so I feel like that is the perfect reading weather, especially because this is a fantasy book, obviously. Updates wise, that's all I have right now. Like, I'm not loving it, I'm not hating it, it's just kind of like, I'm just kind of existing with the book right now. I don't know. But let's read some more and hopefully I will have some more concrete opinions later on. And hopefully I can finish this book before book club tomorrow. I'm sorry if you occasionally hear like a little bell. My cat is playing with her toy right now, but it is 9:30. I got to chapter 50, so I got pretty far into the book, but I was really hoping I would finish it tonight so that I didn't have to finish it tomorrow morning right before book club, because like I said, I host, so I also want to make sure I pick up some snacks and make sure I clean the apartment and everything's prepped and ready to go. So technically I have 14 hours, but like not really. Back to my feelings on the book. I haven't updated a ton because I am not loving the book and I don't really know why. It's really hard for me to pinpoint exactly what's going on in this book. I can't tell if it's just because maybe I'm not in the mood to read a fantasy, or maybe it's because I feel pressured to read this book by tomorrow for book club, which I don't normally do this by any means. I normally read the book club book at least like a week or two in advance, but book club snuck up on me this week. Like I didn't even realize that it was tomorrow until like 2 days ago, and I had started to try to read it, but I worked during the week, and so I kept picking up the book and then just like immediately falling asleep. Anyways, I can't pinpoint exactly what it is, but I definitely want to read the next book in the series as well, because then I feel like I'm giving the series a fair shot. But there are a couple of things that I wanted to mention that I feel like might be contributing to why I'm not loving this book. And for me, when I'm picking up a fantasy, a lot of the reason why I'm picking it up, I'm mostly looking for plot and character elements. And so in this book, I don't feel like there's enough going on. Plot is just very slow in my opinion. And then we don't know the backstory of our characters at all. And it's actually kind of like supposed to be mysterious, at least for Camilla. We don't really know her backstory at all. We know a little bit about her father, but there's kind of like this mysterious subplot of like, who is she? What's her background? Where does she come from? And I kind of wish that we knew that going into the story so that we didn't have to kind of guess these things, so that I could feel more connected with her character. Sorry, my cat is getting the zoomies right now, so maybe that's my sign to go back to reading. But for this book being like over 500 pages, it is so dragged out. Like I don't know, maybe that's just me. I'm so intrigued to hear all of my friends' opinions tomorrow on this book, because I feel like this book is a very beloved romantasy book. So I don't know, maybe it's just I'm not in the mood for it. Finished Throne of the Fallen this morning and I decided I'm gonna rate this a 2.5 star. I did not love this book and I'm kind of sad about it because I feel like a lot of people love this book, but I was shocked because none of us in book club liked this book, and like I said, so many people love this one. But this book is so spicy that it really takes away from the story, because it's kind of like, okay, we have this crazy trial type situation going on. Oh, but in my realm is in danger, but oh, Camilla, it just did not fit in with the story at all. And I'm already iffy when a book is spicy, but this one was just way too much. It also sometimes felt like we were getting information twice, because we would get it in Camilla's point of view and then we would get it again in Envy's point of view, and that also made it feel like there was nothing surprising, because we had kind of Envy being like, oh, I'm so suspicious of her, and then we don't know why, but like if we didn't know that he was suspicious, when we found out what she was hiding at the end of the book, it would have been so much more surprising. But because he had been suspicious this whole time, it was not surprising at all. I think I said this earlier, but I really felt like the world building was lacking in this book. I don't know if that's just because this book also takes place in the same world that the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy takes place in, and I did not read the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy. I do really want to read those books. I probably should have read those before I read this one, but like I said, it was the book club pick for the month, so of course I was gonna read it. But it did make me feel better to know that one of my friends in book club, she has read the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy and she also didn't like this book. So maybe even if I read Kingdom of the Wicked first, I still wouldn't have liked this book. I don't know. Also, Envy being his sin felt very forced. It felt like his sin should be lust instead, but maybe that's just me. Anyways, I am ready to read my next book. It's next morning. I have a little bit of time before I need to leave for work, so I figured we could read, which means we need to start the next book. Now, I do already know what the next book is because I got 3 pages into this book last night before I fell asleep, but for poll number 2, I put 2 historical fictions against each other. So I put The Last Mona Lisa, which is a historical fiction following the theft of the Mona Lisa, which I was so excited when I saw this book in the bookstore. I've never heard anyone talk about this book before. I just kind of stumbled upon it in a used bookstore, and I love when I just randomly stumble upon a book without seeing any reviews or anything like that. And then I put it against We Were Strangers Once, which is actually similar. I have not heard anyone talk about this book, but this one was gifted to me, and it is a World War II historical fiction set in New York City. And I just kind of assumed that this book would win simply because of the whole World War II aspect. I feel like a lot of people love to read about World War II, me included. And so I had a feeling that We Were Strangers Once would win, and it did, even though I kind of honestly wanted The Last asked Mona Lisa to win. That's okay. Like I said, this is set in New York City, and our main character has immigrated to the United States from Germany to try to escape the war that's going on over there because he is a Jewish doctor. But when he comes to the States, he is not allowed to practice medicine. It sounds like this book is going to follow a group of immigrants and everything they had to go through while coming to the United States for the first time. It sounds like a very interesting read, and like I said, I'm very early on into the book, but something that did surprise me was that we're following Elizabeth right now, and based on the dust jacket of the book, I thought that our main character was a man because his name is Egon? I'm really not sure how to pronounce that, but it says he's the son of two world famous naturalists. But anyway, I'm sure maybe this is Elizabeth and she comes into the story at some point and she's like weaved into the story somehow. We're gonna figure it out together. I'm convinced my neighbor is moving or something because they're being so loud right now, so I'm sorry if you can hear them in the background. But I wanted to give an update on We Were Strangers once. I made it to page 66 and I actually just got to the part where they are in America. This entire part of the book so far, they were in Germany. And the beginning of this book kind of caught me off guard because I think I said earlier that I was like, who are these people? What is going on? I was like kind of confused, but it was our main character's parents. So we got a good bit of backstory on him and like his childhood and his family. And then obviously now we're about to see him in America. We haven't seen him yet. We are actually following a different couple that had immigrated to America and then they actually like met in America. So they had been in America. I want to say it said like 9 years or 7 years, something like that. I literally have read 2 pages about them so far. So I assume that we are going to get back to Egan. I still don't know how to say his name, but I assume we're gonna get back to his story at some point because when the last chapter ended, he was getting on a boat to America and he was like, oh, this boat is so different than how it's depicted in movies. So I definitely think we'll circle back to him at some point, but honestly, I have thought about DNFing this book multiple times and I'm still on the fence on if I'm going to DNF it. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sit down and read for like an hour, see how far I can get, and then if I'm still not enjoying the book, then I'll DNF it. I have such a hard time DNFing books even when I don't enjoy them, but there's been 2 instances in this book that just kind of made me uncomfortable / confused, and one of them I almost immediately stopped reading because I was like, this is so absolutely unnecessary and I'm uncomfortable and like, why was this included in the story? And I'll just say it was an interaction between a 10-year-old boy and a 12-year-old girl, and it was just like a paragraph worth, and it was like, this is not, was this supposed to be like part of his character development? Like, what was this random paragraph? Why was it just thrown into the story? I didn't like that. It was, yeah. And then the second instance that I didn't like was a character was being so casually racist, and I don't know if we're going to circle back to this, but it really took me aback, but I'm hoping that there will be a reason for it eventually because I've read other books where it follows immigrants around this time where they're coming to America and they were treated just so poorly. They were treated lesser than everyone else because they immigrated. And the other books I read, it just followed how they were having a really hard time. It was mostly following when I think the book I read, I can't remember the name, but it was when the potato famine was happening in Scotland, and so a bunch of Scottish people had immigrated to America, and I believe it also took place in New York City. I wish I could remember the name, but it is very sad to think about how poorly immigrants are treated, and it's almost like, do I want to read that because it's so sad? And also like those 2 instances just made me uncomfortable. I don't know. Like I said, I think I'm just gonna sit and read for a little bit, maybe 45 minutes to an hour, and then I'll decide what I want to do. I'm obviously about to get ready for bed, but I wanted to give a quick update because I'm going out of town tomorrow and I want to bring the book with me, so I wanted to give an update in case I finish the book while I'm out of town. But I got to page 173, so I ended up reading for more than an hour because I started to really enjoy the book, but it took me getting to maybe like 125, 130, maybe even 140 pages in before I started enjoying the book, which I think is unreasonable. And I think that it's just because of the way that this book is structured, because none of our characters really connect until you get to this point in the story, and then at this point it starts to feel a lot less surface level. You get to know the characters more. So just think, because of the structure in the beginning, it was really hard to get to know them. And now that all of our characters are in the story all at once, it's a lot easier to know them and understand them and like them as characters and see how they've grown from the beginning of the book to now. It's definitely not what I expected when I picked up the book. There's a lot more romance in this than I expected, which is fine. I like romance, so I'm not complaining, but I do like it so far. I think it's just gonna lose a lot of points for how slow it was at the beginning. But I'm gonna go lay down, read a little bit, and then I'm leaving in the morning. just finished We Were Strangers Once. This took me a while to finish reading. I maybe read like 3 pages the entire weekend, and I was mostly reading on my Kindle so that I could lay down in bed with it, and then I would just like immediately fall asleep. But anyways, I've decided to rate this book a 3-star. It was okay. I didn't love it, didn't hate it. I realized while I was finishing this book, it seems to focus a lot on the relationship rather than their life as immigrants. So like, for example, our main character, he gets a job at a grocery store, and when he first gets this job, it mentioned him going through the trash so that he would have food when he left work at the end of the day. It kind of just mentioned that once and then never really talked about it again. So it was kind of like, okay, is he still taking food from the garbage to be able to sustain himself, or did he start miraculously making enough money at this job to be able to afford to buy his groceries? Like, is he actually getting a livable wage at this point? It never discussed that at all. It felt like it was something that was mentioned once and then just kind of brushed under the rug, but it did mention him taking food out of the trash to feed the pigeons. It was kind of like, okay, why did we fully forget about the aspect of him eating out of the trash to be able to survive? It just felt like that struggle fixed itself overnight, which is not realistic. And the relationship aspect in this book by itself isn't bad. It's just that I wasn't expecting it to be that way, and like I said, I kind of feel like things needed to be a little tied off more. Also, the synopsis of this book compares itself to The Nightingale and Brooklyn, and I haven't read Brooklyn, but I have read The Nightingale, and this book does not compare to The Nightingale at all. They're two very, very different books. So The Nightingale, you're focused on these 2 sisters who are in France, and you follow them separately as they lead these very different lives, and it focuses a lot on like the Holocaust aspect of World War II, while this book obviously takes place in America, and it's very heavily focused on what is going on in America. You get quick snippets of what's happening in Germany, but that's it. And when the book ends, America had not joined the war in Germany yet, and I really feel like the ending of this book was so abrupt and quick. It almost seemed like the author was like, okay, I need to end the book. They're gonna go do this. That's it. That's the end. I definitely wanted more from this book. At the end of the day, it just did not live up to expectations, which is why I gave it a 3-star. It was not bad by any means if this is something you're looking for. The 2 books I posted for my last poll are both literary fictions. At least I believe they are. I did not confirm this. I just kind of assumed they were based on the synopsis of the book, so hopefully that's right. But I put Ask Again Yes, which I'm realizing now looking back, I put absolutely no context to these books, and I think I put context for the rest of the books except these, but it's fine. But I put that book against The Husband's Secret by Leanne Moriarty, and I really was not sure which one of these books was going to win because I feel like Leanne Moriarty is a very popular author, but I think Ask Again Yes was popular at some point on Book Talk, and I just never read it, obviously, or it wouldn't be in this video. But anyway, and I actually think this one was the closest percentage-wise. So 58 people chose Ask Again Yes, and 42 people chose The Husband's Secret, which did surprise me a little bit because, like I said, Leanne Moriarty is pretty popular, so I thought that maybe that book would win. But we are reading Ask Again Yes. This book has been on my TBR for a while, so I'm very excited to get to this one. Yesterday I made it to page 131 in Ask Again Yes, and I was sitting here trying to think about what I wanted to say because I don't want to give anything away, and I'm already like a good chunk into the book, and so I was like, okay, let me read the back of the book. And I definitely did not fully read the back of the book before picking this up because I don't know what I was thinking. I just like read the first paragraph and I was like, okay, yeah, that's why my expectations going into this book were so different than what the book actually is about. So going into the book, I thought that we were following 2 rookie cops and that they would be like our main characters and their family would like come up and we would have information about their family, but that we would mostly be following the 2 dads of these 2 different families. That is not the case at all. You do follow the dads for 1 chapter in the beginning, and then the focus switches to 2 of the kids. So one family has a daughter, her name is Kate, and then one has a son named Peter, and they're very similar in age. Yeah, they were born 6 months apart, so very close in age. And you actually kind of time jump. You see like the families moving into this house and them having these kids, and then you follow Kate and Peter, and I think it starts in 2nd grade. You get some time with them there, and then you kind of time jump to them being 14, I think, and they're going to high school. So there are some time jumps, but you are mostly following these 2 kids. And in the very beginning of the book, I was not enjoying it. I was like, this doesn't make sense for 2nd graders at all to be like acting this way, talking this way, especially because this takes place, I think, in the 90s. And I'm pretty sure back then, obviously I wasn't born back then. Well, maybe that's not obvious, but I didn't exist in the 90s. But back then things were very different, and I feel like kids were more immature back then than they are now. And that's something I struggle with a lot in books when kids are the main focus. They always feel just a little bit older than they should. But they are only in 2nd grade for a very short amount of time in this book until they time jump and they've been like 14-ish for a good part of the book now. But I would definitely say check the trigger warnings in this book. They discuss mental health a good bit, but it's also very unique and interesting the way they do it because, like I said, we're following following these kids, and it is mostly third person, so you are getting thoughts of other people and you're kind of following everyone, but you are mostly focusing, like I said, on these two kids. So a lot of the mental health struggles, you're actually seeing it from one of the kids' point of views, which is really interesting because I don't feel like that happens a lot in books. At least it's not something I've read before, so I find that pretty unique. But that's one of the main reasons I didn't like this book at first, but I'm starting to like the book more now, and since it is very character focused, I'm not surprised that I didn't love it at the beginning. I feel like when the book is character focused, you have to grow that connection with the characters before you start to really enjoy the book. I can't even lie, the first like 50 pages of this book, I wasn't hating it by any means, but I was kind of annoyed because I was like, oh my goodness, am I picking up the third book in a row in this video that I'm not gonna enjoy? So I was kind of upset about that. I was like, I need to find a good book at this point. Like I'm gonna lose my mind if I don't read a book that I really enjoy, you know what I mean? So I have very high hopes for this book. Hopefully that doesn't, you know, crush my dreams. Anyways, I'm gonna go back to reading. I did really want to finish this book today. I don't think that that's super realistic because look how much I have left. I'm also a slow reader, and the font in this book, I don't know if you can tell, it's pretty small. It's so small to the point where I actually switched to the audiobook a little bit yesterday because I can't be looking at a screen all day at work and then come home and like try to read this tiny font. Like my eyes, I don't have great eyes, okay? Anyways, I'm gonna stop yapping and I'm going to go read for a little bit. It's been quite a while. I've been reading pretty much on and off all day, and so I made it to chapter 13, page 213 in this book. So I'm a little over halfway. I'm actually really enjoying this book right now, and I'm just pretty surprised because I didn't love it when I first started reading it, but it's honestly so beautiful the way that you are just falling for these characters that are so very flawed, but you're also just rooting for them because you want them to succeed after everything that they've gone through. And it's just such a beautiful story about the human connection, and it does discuss mental health and family issues and growing up and leaving high school and going to college, and it is just very beautiful, and I really wasn't expecting that from this. I love when I pick up a book and I'm just kind of taken aback, but I think my favorite part about this book so far is the discussions around, like I was saying, the human connection and relationships, because our two main characters were best friends as kids and something very tragic happens and they are broken apart, but they are still connected, and I just think that's so beautiful but also so sad. My cat has taken an interest to the camera, so I'm sorry if it starts to move, but it's also just heartbreaking and makes me emotional to see a story where they have this great connection as best friends, but they are ripped apart for reasons that are fully not their own. It's fully because of the actions of other people, and literally that made me a little teary-eyed when I just thought about that and made that connection while I was reading the book, because I feel like that's part of being a kid that's so devastating, is like you don't control as much as what you do as an adult, like as in like life decisions and things like that. Like, and I just feel like this is craziness coming from me because for the longest time I was like, I don't like kids and books, blah blah blah, but now they're in college, they're 18, they don't feel like kids anymore. They are still very young. I'm sure we're gonna see them make plenty of mistakes in the rest of the book, but the author just really manages to make you fall in love with these characters even though they're so flawed, but because of everything that's happened to them and their families, you can't help but to root for them. And I love that. I'm someone that when I'm reading a book and the main character is meant to be insufferable, which then makes me not like the main character, I have a really hard time liking the book because I don't like the main character. Like for example, I think it was Yellowface that I was really having that problem with. There's been other books too, but Yellowface is the one that sticks out to me the most, where I was just so frustrated with the main character the entire book that I just could not get behind that book. But that was literally the point of the book, was for the main character to be unlikable and for you to have those feelings about her. But anyways, this book is not like that. I don't even know where I was going with that. I'm gonna go back to reading. I just finished Ask Again Yes, and I really enjoyed it. I'm actually surprised by how much I enjoyed it because at the beginning of the book I was not loving it. I do think it takes a second to kind of get into the story, but I do find myself taking a second to get into the story whenever it's very character focused like this one is. And I just remember in the beginning of this book I was so confused on why we were focusing on these kids, but then I started liking the book more once they grow up and you kind of get attached to them. You're also following more than just the kids in the story. You get the point of view of multiple different family members in these two different families. So I'm gonna give this book a 4-star. If I was being super specific, I would give it a 3.75, but I just find it easier for me to either do whole numbers or half numbers, and I really don't have that many negative things to say about this book. I already mentioned it at the beginning, but I also didn't like the way the book ended. I felt like there were some things that weren't fully closed off. There were just a couple things that I didn't feel like got fully resolved that I really wanted to see the resolution to, so that was a little disappointing, but overall I highly recommend this book, especially if you're someone that likes reading about families, family drama, family dynamics. I definitely think you'll like this one. We started off this video not so strong, but ended it with a bang, which is great. Thank you to anyone who voted on my Instagram stories. Let me know if you want me to do this again, or maybe I can use the poll option on YouTube and you guys can pick what I read next. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!